Welcome back. We're now going to take a look at the world of the laptops, and it's easy to see why people would go for a laptop. I mean, you haven't got the large number of cables that are around, and when you're finished with it you can just close it up and put it in a bag and put it somewhere. You haven't got to dedicate a space in your home. It's all very appealing, but if you've seen the previous videos, you've seen the amount of peripherals that are needed for a computer, and when you consider that most of them are built into one of these, you start to appreciate that you're going to have to pay a bit of money for one of these. Now, my rule of thumb is that if I'm looking to buy a laptop to replace a desktop, I'm looking at spending at least double the cost of the desktop on a laptop to do the same job. I usually start at about £700 when I'm buying a laptop that I'm going to seriously use, and I do mean seriously use, as a replacement for a desktop. In the previous videos you've hopefully worked out that you've seen the machines. They're modular. A manufacturer can create motherboards, hard drives, etc., knowing that they're going to be able to be used in a wide variety of machines. That helps them keep the cost down because they can manufacture a lot of them. When you're talking about laptops, it's a different world. Typically, you can't swap components from one laptop even to another of the same family, unless they're specifically the same model. There are exceptions to that, but the long story short is, on the components they build these laptops of, they're not readily interchangeable. So they can't, when they manufacture them, they can't manufacture as many of them, so the price comparatively goes up. They keep the price back down by cutting corners. So if you've got about a £300 laptop and you find that it's freezing on you, one of the common things to do is look at the hard disk light. If the hard disk light is flashing itself silly while you're waiting for the laptop, that's typically one of the ways where they've cut corners. And that's because the system is waiting for the hard disk to catch up. That's a long story short. Simplified, the hard disk might be a nice size, it might be however many hundreds of gig you want, but if it's not able to catch up to the rest of the system, it's going to slow up and jam, and you're just going to be waiting for it. And that's the price that you're going to pay for not putting enough money behind a laptop that you're going to seriously use. If you're not going to use it that seriously, then you can probably live with the quirks. Now, that's typically what you're looking at. Again, it comes back to that first video, make your shopping list. So when I bought this, I pretty much knew what I wanted to do. I wanted a machine that would go with me, and I'd be able to work up my scripts when I was typically stuck somewhere, or I was on holiday and I didn't want to cart a heavier machine like this around. This one is quite light. I can even pick it up by its screen and be confident that the hinge is strong enough that it's going to hold it. It's a very much lighter machine. You'll notice that it hasn't got anything like this. This one's got a DVD-ROM, this one hasn't, and it does what I need it to do. The screen isn't that high a resolution, but it's fine for me to see words on. I'm not going to use it for any graphic editing, video editing. That kind of thing is just beyond the simple lower cost power of this machine. I'd just be overloading it. So it's down to my shopping list as to what I wanted to buy, and that's enabled me to get value for money, because yes, this did cost about £300, but it doesn't do all that my desktop will do. There are other options like this one. Some friends bought this for me, I think for Christmas one year, and this is an external CD/DVD-ROM drive. So if I wanted it and I was going on holiday, I could easily pack this in and I could give this CD/DVD functionality, and I could watch my movies when I'm away from home, in a caravan somewhere or something, because it's not too much of a strain on the system. Another little thing to notice is this that I came across. It's a nutty little mouse. I'm going to try and wait for the camera to focus in on that. You can see it's got tucked away here a little transmitter that's USB, and I just plug that into the laptop, and this is then my little wireless mouse. If I turn that on, I think it's got a battery in it, and that battery's been in there for a while. The light's a bit dim, but yeah, it's still going to work. Yep, and it's got power saving features in it as well. So that's pretty much, I can use this with just any device that I like. I've even used this with a PC at one point when I wanted to control it across the room. They're nice. They're not, they've got side buttons even, so I can use page up, back, 4 sort of thing from it. Nice. I think it only cost me about a £5. So be aware that there are options like this. You're not stuck with a trackpad, and you're not stuck with having to carry a cabled mouse around. As long as you're not going to stress yourself and overuse it, there are options like this around. And you can even use it, because it's USB again, you can use it on a desktop even, so you've got options. But the long story short on laptops is if you spend about £300 on a machine that you're expecting to use instead of a desktop, you're going to run into trouble, because it's an awful lot to pack into one machine, and they're not going to get the money back on it. So they cut corners. You're looking at a rule of thumb £700 to start for a decent laptop that's going to replace a desktop. And that, I think, is about it for laptops. Also, in terms of upgrading the laptops, you can't do that much with them usually. You can upgrade the hard drive, and indeed I upgraded the hard drive on this one to a flash hard drive, a solid state hard drive, so it used less power, which gave me longer life on the battery, and it was faster in operation. But again, that costs money. I think the one that's in there cost about 80 to 90 pounds, possibly about 100 at the time. Not very much storage, but ideal for what I needed it for. And you can also typically upgrade the memory. You've got to buy specific memory, so you need to do your research to make sure you get the right chips. And there's another figure that you may not know about, which is FSB, front side bus. It's the bus which buses around information on the front side of the machine. And typically the memory that came in here, that came with this, was ran at a speed of 666. But it can run at 800. So I put some extra money behind more RAM chips, more memory for this, that was also faster. And I got more value for money out of it that way. Faster response. But again, it takes more money. They put in the cheaper, slower components to bring the price down, and that entices you to buy the machine. But if you want the performance, you're typically going to have to pay.